Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So this audio is on. And then we are recording.
Okay.
Set to go.
The team's recording.
Yeah. So
Sounds good.
this is our
Thank you.
mic that we want to use.
Okay. All right. Good morning, everyone. We're ready to start. Hopefully, and this is a event where we want you to feel comfortable getting food, doing your things. So don't feel like you have to be stuck in your chairs. But we do have an amazing program today. We're really grateful for all of you to spend your Sunday with us. I know it's not easy. My name is Lata Valori Surya. I'm a clinical psychologist and director of our Autism Center here and lead of our Spark Center at Rush. We'll tell you a little bit about that today, but mostly this program is about learning from our really incredible speakers that have traveled from around the country to share with you work on culturally competent supports and interventions and positive discipline strategies, as you'll see. I'm going to go first to a little bit about Rush. There's a lot more programming and information out there. The reason that we are hosting along with this Simon Spark Foundation is because we're a lifespan autism center that's been part of the Spark study since for 9 years since it started. But we do a lot of work on interventions and we serve our local community. And the intervention work that we do is really around building capacity for autistic individuals, as well as families and parents, to learn how to interact with our children in ways that support them and us. So we all know that working with or having an autistic individual in our lives means that we've got to shift and change. We were talking about that this morning, and we're always learning. So that's what we're doing here. These little slides that you see here are examples of parenting strategies and programs that we have here that once this program is done and you're still interested, if you want to see if there are services that are appropriate, these are the kinds of programs we might be able to support you with. Some are virtual, some are in person. We also have lots of events in the community that hopefully many of you will learn about and access. The table out front is where you can get most of that information. I'm going to stop there because what we are here and what we're sponsored to do here is from the Spark study, which is a national community of autistic individuals, families, researchers, really looking to understand the diversity of autism in many ways. It is a genetics first study. So we're studying autism really from the individual level and then trying to understand how our autistic community are unique from biology, from families, from culture, and then over time, hopefully developing interventions that fit our unique profiles. That's the big picture vision of Spark that at the ground level today, we're really here to work with all the sort of stakeholders that are involved in autism work, clinical care research, to have folks understand what are the needs specifically here about culturally sensitive needs in autism care. So our speakers today, forgot, I had one more slide. This is what we do. It's a pretty incredible study, and it's pretty incredible what we've been doing over the last several years. As a genetics first autism study, over the last 9 years, we've recruited 285,000 individuals across 31 sites across the US. And the goal here is, again, genetics first, understanding our genetics, but also once we do that, matching families with studies that make sense for them. And so, again, all of this are things that we will talk about and hear over time. But today, I'm going to go right to our speakers since we're running a little bit behind schedule. So I'm really excited to welcome Camille Proctor and Natasha Nelson to our panel discussion today. You have really detailed bios in your packets along with some other information, but I would like to just say out loud who are our sort of incredible educators today. So Camille, there she is. Camille is a passionate advocate and executive director of the Color of Autism. The Color of Autism is the group that's really spearheaded the work that's being done here today and across the country with Spark. Her advocacy journey began when her son was diagnosed with autism, and in 2008, he's here today to welcome us too. And she was really looking to, through this experience, address the unmet needs within the Black community. In 2009, she founded Color of Autism. It's dedicated to empowering African American families across the country, and the impact that she's been having is being seen in the work this weekend. Even you're in Georgia, now she's here for us. She's an accomplished author, has contributed in many ways on diversity, inclusion, both for agencies and groups like Rush and Spark and the Simons Foundation, but also to television and film. And her work and the things that she's doing today are an outcome of all these efforts she has done over the last, what's now, I can't even count, 15, 20 years and more. Yeah, a lot of time. So she's going to present our first presentation on culturally competent care. And then Natasha will follow. There she is. You see her behind the podium. Natasha is a disability advocate, certified positive behavioral educator. She does work in homes, schools. She has so many awards that are listed here. I just found out there's many things on here that she hasn't even listed. She is a mother of 2 autistic Black children in school, traveling the country to give us her knowledge. She is part of the Georgia Leadership Education and Neurodevelopmental and Related Disabilities. It's called LEND. We also have a LEND program in Illinois. These are national centers that are designed to help train future educators and future professionals in developmental disability care. So she's sharing her knowledge, not just with us, but the future generations, and has received several awards, including being the LEND program, the National LEND Program's emerging leaders for this year. So again, we are so lucky, so grateful for you all to come. I'm going to pass the mic off to Camille.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and then your slide deck starts right there.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm really happy to be here, and I really want to thank the Rush team for inviting us here. I'm going to talk to you about culturally competent support for families. And through my talk, I'm just going to give you a spoiler alert. Through my talk, I'm going to encourage you to embrace your child's neurodiversity, because it's really important that you embrace your child's identity so that they can embrace it, so that they can learn how to advocate for themselves. And you have to keep in mind, you don't have to speak in order to advocate for yourself. And so if you get anything out of some of the things that I'm going to say today, I want you to take that home with you, that you have to figure out a way. If you're not there, you're going to have to get there, which kind of sounds harsh, but you're going to have to get there, because one day they're going to be 6'2" and 175 pounds for no reason, because I'm short. And I don't expect to live forever. And that's just the thing. We're not going to be here forever, right? And so what are they going to do when we're not here? And you don't want to paint a bleak picture for your children's future. You want to paint a positive one. And so you always have to meet your kids where they are. So the first culturally competent thing you can do is in your own house. Is come to terms and come to a meeting with your child. Oops, you just told me I click, right? I figured it out.
Got it. Good.
Okay. Culturally competent support is essential for Black children with special needs, as it acknowledges their unique backgrounds and empowers them to thrive. Embracing diversity helps create a more inclusive environment where every child can reach their fullest potential. Apparently, this is something I said a few years ago, but I say that because it's really important for any child with any type of diverse background. Is very important because historically, marginalized communities have not really embraced neurodiversity, nor have they embraced anything that happens to do with one's neurological system. We seem to think that there's nothing wrong with us. And if your family is from the West Indies like mine, we just put Dettol on everything. And that's like that's a disinfectant. So, understanding cultural competence. What is cultural competence? Well, awareness, recognizing and understanding one's own cultural beliefs and values, and appreciating that others may have different perspectives. Knowledge, gaining insights into different cultural practices and worldviews, particularly those of specific, I'm sorry, I made a typo, of the specific cultural and individual needs of families, leading to more effective outcomes. Reduces disparities, helps address and reduce disparities in access to services and support for families of color, ensuring equitable treatment. So, what does that mean? So, when you are seeking services and when you're getting services, it's important that you share your cultural background. It's very important because there's certain things that your household may do that this household doesn't do. For example, if you're a Muslim family, it's important for your provider or your therapist to know that you can only use your left hand for certain things. If having your child understand how to and to yield, and what I mean is yield, as we know in communities of colors, interactions with the police don't always go so well. So you should be open enough to say, these are some of the things that I want my child to understand. I want my child to, it doesn't matter. Like if prayer is important in your home, teach them that. But you have to speak up and you have to say what you need because every culture isn't the same. For example, when we talk about gravy, some of us think gravy is this brown stuff. But if you're in Italy, gravy is spaghetti sauce. People should know that. So let's talk about what your roles are. Part of your role, believe it or not, is to be a data collector because you're going to gain insights into your child's world. And those insights that you gain as a data collector will help you better support your child. So, how can parents be effective data collectors? You have an observational role. Parents are unique in a position to observe their child's behavior and environment consistently and intimately. So basically, what that wordy sentence I created means is that you're there with your child every day. So you see what they do, you see their behaviors. So, for example, let's say every day at 4 o'clock when they get home from school, they're very agitated. You need to figure out what is the source of the agitation. You need to start tracking whatever it is they're doing. If they're knocking up against the wall, if they're whatever it is, you need to track it so that you and your provider can narrow down what the problem is and be responsive to that need and help get them to a sense of comfort. And like your everyday insights, being present in a day-to-day experience, it allows parents to notice subtle changes and patterns in their child's behavior. So just like I said, one day if your child, trying to think of something my son does because he does a lot. Um, one day they may choose not to wear a certain garment, right? There might be a shirt they just won't put on. And it could be the tag on the shirt, but you got to investigate what's going on with the shirt. Is it itchy? Is it, you have to be an investigator. And you have to keep documentation on the stuff that goes on in your household because systematically recording observations, as a parent, you can provide valuable data that offers a holistic view of your child's needs and behaviors. And this is going to be really helpful to you, especially when you're interacting with your providers, and even with your schools, like your teachers. You need to know your child. And you shouldn't have what I like to be caught off guard with the information that you're providing. Oh, wait, what? Because I've been caught off guard and I felt kind of dumb. And it's very common for this to happen. Like, I'll give you an example. Some years ago, my son was about 4. And I could tell you at that moment, my son did not speak. And I went to a conference with his teacher and I took him with me. And she said to him, Ari, go over and fill out the board. And he went over and he pegged all this stuff. And I'm just like, Ari, blah, blah, blah. And at the end of it, he said, bye, Miss Emily. And I just started crying. I was in tears. I was in tears. And that's one of the reasons I created this slide, because I didn't even know what his capabilities were, because I was so wrapped up in being sad and so wrapped up in being overwhelmed. And it is overwhelming. I'm not going to take that away from you. But to quote Cher in this movie called Moonstruck, you're going to have to snap out of it. You have to snap out of it. Otherwise, you're going to be like me, walking down a school highway, sitting in a parking lot with a little kid in a Volvo crying because you didn't know he could talk. I mean, he wasn't he didn't have a lot of fluidity, but he could communicate, and I didn't even know it. So, empowered decision making. Armed with concrete data, parents can make informed decisions and collaborate more effectively with therapists and educators. And that's what I want you to get out of this. The more you know, the better off you and your support team can empower your child. So what data do you want to collect? Well, you want to look at the behaviors, focus on observing specific behaviors of interest, such as social interactions, communication styles, and responses to various stimuli. Now that was a lot, but effectively what it means is pay attention to what your child likes and dislikes. What makes them happy, what makes them unhappy, what makes them feel comfortable in their own skin. And needs, pay attention to what your child's uniques are, including sensory preferences, emotional cues, and comfort requirements. So for example, some children don't like loud noises. Some children and individuals don't like certain types of lighting. Some individuals really crave being touched and being around people. So you should be aware of that. Patterns, identify and document any repeating patterns or triggers that influences your child's behavior and can help in anticipating and managing reactions effectively. So if you are going to go somewhere that's unfamiliar to your child and you're not sure how they're going to be, it's a great idea to talk it through with them, create a social story. And if you know that there's certain things that will bother them, then you need to take those items of comfort to get them in a great space. So what are your tools for data collection? Unlike this lady sitting at a computer, I don't necessarily expect you to do this. It was just a nice visual. But utilize a variety of tools like journals. You can write stuff down. You can they even have apps for digital tracking that are free, and direct observation to gather comprehensive data. Frequency, collect data consistently, whether daily or weekly, to capture a detailed and reliable picture over time. And accuracy, ensure that the data is recorded accurately and consistently, sticking to the routine that minimizes omissions and errors. So why is this important? So when you have a behaviorist, typically they set goals for your child, but it shouldn't be a they, it should be a we. So when you have your behaviorist, it should be a we. And so you all as a team should be setting behavioral goals for your child. And you know who is the most integral part of that we? Your child. You should always include your child in their behavior plan. And I know you're saying my child is 6 and what are they going to give? But trust me, they have something to say, even if it's a dissertation on Bluey or Peppa Pig or whoever's out there in these streets. Okay. Utilizing data for support, therapeutic support. Use the collected data to provide therapists with details and insights, helping them to tailor interventions more effectively for your child's unique needs. And that's what I started with. You want to make sure that your therapeutic supports are unique to your child, not blanketed, They're unique to what your child's needs are. And that's how all of this data collection is going to help you, because you're going to have a detailed map on how to support your child. You're going to use this with your educational partners. You're going to share the insights with the educators to enhance collaboration and ensure that support strategies are consistent and well-informed within educational settings. You don't know how many times I talk to parents and they feel defeated by their IEP meetings. One of the reasons they feel defeated is because they never walk in. I'm just going to use this as a prop. They never walk in with their own folders. They don't walk in with anything. They just come in and they sit down and they have nothing. You need to be walking into these IEP meetings with this data. And so while they're talking, let me tell you about this, and let me tell you, this needs to be a back and forth situation when you're dealing with the educational system. You can't just let them tell you. You should be able to provide accurate feedback. The data collection, that's your accurate feedback. And if you have pages of it, they can't just tell you you're making it up. And if they don't want to include you in the process of decision making for your own child, then you need to reevaluate where your child goes to school. And because you need to create tailored plans, develop personalized support plans that reflect the child's specific behavior patterns and needs, ensuring a coordinated approach to care and learning. So it's important that you communicate with your partners, and your partners are your therapeutic team and your educators, and anyone that comes in contact and cares for your child. Sharing data, present data in a clear, organized format. So oftentimes I tell parents, like, you have to collect this data, but I never tell, like someone said, you told me to collect the data, but you didn't tell me how to present it. And I'm like, oh yeah, I guess, So even if you have to practice, like you're giving a presentation, like I'm standing up here talking to you all, you have to say, let's talk about this data that I collected. And it has to be organized, because sometimes you will get a therapist that doesn't have what I like to call that humanistic touch. They're good with kids, but they're not good with grown-ups. Have you all met those people? Yeah, I know. And they talk to you in that little inside voice, and you get mad because you're a whole adult. I know. So building partnerships, foster open and ongoing communications with your therapists and educators, using shared data as a foundation to strengthen the relationships and collaborate on strategies. Sometimes you'll get some opposition, but I will tell you that once you get over that, your therapeutic team will find you to be one of the most valuable assets to this therapeutic process. Benefits of data-driven advocacy. Well, again, informed decisions, utilize data to make well-informed choices that optimizes your child's care and support, ensuring interventions are effective and targeted. Empowerment, which is one of the most important things. You're going to gain confidence and empowerment as a parent by using the knowledge and insights from your data to advocate strongly for your child's needs. So every piece of knowledge you gather is a stepping stone towards becoming a powerful advocate for your child. By embracing data and insights, you arm yourself with the tools necessary to make informed decisions. Champion your child's unique needs and foster their growth in a world that often demands understanding. Remember, as you collect and utilize these insights, you're not just supporting your child, you're empowering yourself to be their most passionate and effective advocate. Truly, an informed parent is an empowered parent. Let's harness the power together. So, do you have any questions? I know I said a lot, but if I wasn't clear, please ask. Or if you have any just general questions, I'd love to answer them. Sure. Okay. So there's one called Thriving, the Thriving app, and that is a schedule, a scheduler. That's the best way I can explain it. It helps them with task reminders. Then there's one, I can write them down later. There's one called Magnus Mode, and that helps some of the older children do simple tasks like go to the bank because they have a partnership with Huntington Bank. It tells them how to go into a bank. They have a partnership with Tim Hortons. It teaches them how to order Tim Hortons. They have a partnership with Trader Joe's. It teaches them if they are hired at Trader Joe's how to work. But there are a number of different apps. And actually, believe it or not, you can go to the App Store and just punch in autism and what you think you want, and a bunch of stuff will pop up, to be truthful with you. Any other questions? You all are so quiet. All right. Sorry. But if you didn't get anything else, I just want you to know I'm passionate about you knowing about your child. And I'm passionate about your child. What I don't have on these slides, because I didn't want to take up too much time, is your child being passionate about themselves. Because the one thing you do want to teach your child is how to advocate for themselves when they become overwhelmed, for them to say, I need a break. I talk to so many parents and they say their children don't know that they're autistic. And I think it's your choice, but it's always been my choice for my son to know who he was, so that way he could better advocate for himself. Because too often we get into situations where someone commits a crime, and I hate to be macabre, but you don't find out. Well, let me just put it to you this way. Sometimes it is a matter of black and white. You know, a kid shoots up a church in Charlottesville, he's autistic. But then a kid crossing the street or jaywalking is not autistic. See how that goes? You know? And they get the most severe penalty. And the world is just like that. And so you need to be able to say who they are ahead of the game, not after. Because when they're in custody, it's too late to be pulling out paperwork talking about this, that, and the other. Just saying. So yeah. Honestly, it's up to you. I always told him because I saw where things were going, to be honest. And I hate to say that, but I would see some of the most terrible things. And I used the church in South Carolina as an example. That young man killed all of those people. They took him to Burger King. And then when they started to try him, they said he was autistic. The young man went into the movie theater, shot all those people, came out alive. They said he was autistic. Ryan Gaynor, no, actually, I'll give you a local person. Stefan Watts, who lived here in Chicago, was in his own home, had a meltdown, got shot 7 times in his basement. The first two had 2 things in common. They were both white. The latter was Black. And so, knowing these things, I know that the outcomes are not the same. And I noticed that it's important, especially for that data collection piece, for you to be able to say who your child is in crisis, and you have to be precise. It's unfortunate and sad, but it's true. And I don't necessarily want to make this about black and white, but I just want you to know that people of color typically don't have the same outcomes. So if you don't tell your child and they don't know how to say who they are, the police aren't going to volunteer that information for them. Well, thank you, everyone. I appreciate being here. And I'm going to let Natasha have her time.
Let's go right ahead. Yes, I can navigate it just fine. So, hello, everyone. I am going to pull up my info here. Let's see here. There she goes. Perfect. I'm going to make her bigger if I can. Almost. There we go. Perfect. But first, I am autistic, and we just had a long class. We need movement. I need somatic movement. I figure you might need somatic movement. So I am going to do a little exercise, okay? If you would like to join me, you can. If you don't feel like moving, don't feel like doing any of those things, that is also fine. But while you're doing it, I just want you to think about what you're thinking, feeling, and deciding. I'm going to give you a set of instructions. And if you feel inclined, follow my instructions. If you don't, just think about what you're thinking, feeling, and deciding, okay? Don't stand up. Don't stand up. Don't sit down. Do not sit down. Don't sit down. Don't sit down. Don't put your hands in the air. Don't put your hands on your face. Don't put your hands on your side. Don't move. Don't open your mouth. No, don't open your mouth. Don't close your mouth. Not close your mouth. Don't eat. Does anybody want to tell me what they were thinking? Feeling?
Goodness. I do that so much with my grandson. My son Aiden is 3 years old. About a year ago, we started noticing his development and seeing, okay, something is not quite clicking here. So, in about 2 weeks, he'll be evaluated and, he'll be placed in a care preschool for however they go with CPS. In your first 2 or 3 instructions, I just dropped my head. Because that's what I do then. Put your hands off your ears. No, don't put your hands in your face. Don't do, and then you said, don't be. And it just went out. And that's it's work. So yeah, that's what I'm feeling. I'm hearing it, and it really has helped me just that little bit.
Thank you so much for your vulnerability and sharing. Thank you for answering. Would anybody else like to answer what they were thinking, feeling, and deciding? Absolutely. Yes, Karina.
That was a whole lot.
Yeah.
That was a whole lot of
Back and forth, right? Huh?
the jerky that I used to do.
Mhm.
That's like the day it's called a Pac-Man.
Didn't even get a chance to process, did you? Nope. Mhm. All right, now I'm gonna give you a second set of instructions. Same thing. If you feel inclined to do them, you can. If you don't, that's absolutely fine. Just think about what you're thinking, feeling, and deciding. Stand up, please. Your body. Everybody clap your hands. Take a deep breath in and let it out. Be still, be comfortable, be you. All right, would anybody like to share what they were thinking, feeling, and deciding? Absolutely. So, what was the difference in my first set of instructions and my second set of instructions? Absolutely, I saw your hand first.
First set of instructions. You try to that kid and make us comfortable, okay, and other people around. That's one how we try to keep them. You know what I'm saying? I would like to say to this folk here, your grandbaby. We, my baby is 14. And when she was speaking, and she was saying, you know what you thinking? I was like, my goodness, I remember that. I'm here to tell you this, that you can get that your baby. And all of you all know they can get that. Okay? So it's a lot. It is a lot. But guess what? You can handle it. You can learn to handle it. And not knowing what to do, uh, first, first grandbaby with autism, first grandbaby. You know what to do. We can learn what to do. We have to keep learning what to do. And so but we have to make safe spaces for them. You know what I'm saying? And let them know when it's okay. This is a place where you can, but you always can. They can get it.
Another big difference between my beginning instruction and my second instruction was I didn't tell you what to do in my first set of instructions. I told you what not to do. Continually, what not to do, with no instructions of what to do. Whereas with the second set of instructions, I told you what to do. Exactly. And that is so important. So first off, I want to empower both of you in knowing that I am autistic and 50 other things in the DSM-5. And I have two children who are autistic. And I am a certified positive discipline educator in the classroom, in homes, and in early childhood education centers. And every now and then, I will still test myself to see how many times I say no, stop, and don't. And the lowest I've ever got is still about 27 in a week. Because it is a natural inclination. They're touching something that's unsafe. You know, stop, don't. But the problem with that is you're telling them what not to do, but you're not telling them what to do. And I've seen this live and in action. I've seen my daughter, who is autistic and mentally speaking, playing with my husband. I have the privilege of being a veteran, and so I was able to stay home with my children while they were young, which is how they were able to be diagnosed so early. And I was watching my daughter, just observing, trying to get as much information and data as I could because I saw that something was up and was wanting to be adamant with the doctor that something was up. And my daughter was sliding across the table. My husband said, "No, don't slide across the table. Sit down. Don't do that." And then she looked at him and then she wiped her arm across the table. He said, "No, I told you, don't slide across the table." And then she looked at him again. Then she jumped on the table. He said, "Paris, I said don't slide by the table." He put her down. She looked at him again. Then she slapped the leg. I said, "Okay, I'm gonna enter her child." I said, tell her where she can climb, jump, and slide. Tell her where she can go instead of telling her to stop sliding on this table. And he said, "Paris, you want to jump? Come on, let's go on the jungle gym." So we had a small kid jungle gym. He put her on there to climb and jump and slide, and she was just fine. But at the end of the day, we are autistic and we think differently, but we are still children who are scientists. Children are learning and exploring their world. You just have an autistic child whose brain works differently, so their exploration looks different and weird to you. But it's still a child exploring their world. And we're very literal. So if you tell us what not to do, okay, we might not do that. But how can I do this another way? What's another way I can do this? And so telling them what they can do empowers them and helps you. Because you know how hard it is on your mental health to be saying, "No, stop that," all day. So telling them what they can do. So now that we've done that exercise, I am Natasha Nelson. I'm also known as Supernova Mama. I am a autistic advocate because I do have autism. I have ADHD. I have sensory processing disorder. I have OCD. I have general anxiety disorder. I think I said PTSD. If I haven't, I do have that. And I have somatic syndrome disorder, which means that I confuse stress and pain. And so I can't tell sometimes if I'm in a lot of stress that I'm hurting myself. I had fractured my back before in military, not realizing that I was hurting my back because I was so focused on getting through basic training that I had a stress fracture and broke off a piece of my fragmented piece of my back. So I am, and the fun part of all of this is I did not get diagnosed until initially 31, just with autism, and then with everything that you just heard, 34. And that was until after my children were diagnosed. My children were diagnosed early again because I had the privilege of deciding I want to stay at home with my Black little girls until they can speak before I put them in any type of daycare or any type of thing. And my oldest didn't speak. And so I stayed home and we started this journey of me advocating with her pediatric, well, first with military pediatricians, because my husband was still in, us getting frustrated with them, my husband getting out of the military and us moving to Atlanta, and me advocating in Atlanta and actually being listened to for them and getting them into early intervention services. And as I was learning, again, I'm autistic. So of course, them getting diagnosed, that became my special interest. How do I help my kids? That was my only focus. I was straightforward with it, tunnel vision. And so with that, certifications, education, and I'm like, wait a minute, did that. I said, I do that. Or I did it as a kid and eventually got my own diagnosis and realized that there isn't this issue of me not being able to find a balance of motherhood and other people. I'm autistic and I only focus on motherhood because it's my special interest. And so now I am here to talk to you about the most important part to me in positive discipline is you understanding your child to be able to tell them what to do and how to redirect them so that you're not constantly feeling like you're telling them what not to do and not allowing them to be themselves. Okay, so that's what we're going to get into. So you have heard it's a spectrum. Autism is a spectrum, right? But a lot of times when we think of spectrum, we think very linear. We think not so autistic, they're high functioning. She's high functioning. Y'all think I'm high functioning. Y'all see how I be tearing up the therapist. And then you'll hear them say, oh, well, they have real autism. They need a lot of support and help. And my argument for that always is you are setting both of those people up for failure. Because that high functioning, not so autistic person, you put them in rooms and places and you expect for them to not have sensory issues, not have social issues, not have emotional issues. You put them in high stress. And when they get overwhelmed and melt down, then it's, oh, we didn't know you was this autistic. What happened? Oh no, right? And then that person that you feel like is overly autistic or needs all the support, I hate this. I can't pronounce it. But you make them feel like a child constantly, and you forget that that person is going to be an adult who needs to be independent, who may not always have you. And so you don't think that they're capable of, oh, he can't do that. He's autistic. He can't do that. He doesn't speak, so he's not going to be able to do that. And you stop focusing on the how and what we can do to support that person to make it happen, and you just restrict them because they're too autistic. So when we think in this linear way, we are not helping anyone who is on the spectrum. And so I challenge you to think of the spectrum more like this. Oh, let's do slideshow. That just makes sense, right? Okay, there we go. So there are 5 main areas that autism affects. Sensory, perception, if you're not familiar. So sensory is how you take all of the information from the world. Perception is how you perceive that information you're taking in, right? 2 different things, how you're getting that information and then what you process that information as, right? The next is motor skills. We all know about that. The writing, trying to tie shoes, just trying to put toothpaste on a toothbrush, all of those things, right? The next is executive function. And we will go over what executive function is, but I always tell people to think of it as the air traffic controller of your brain, okay? And then the last one is language and communication, which goes into our social skills and things like that. So those 5 areas are affected by autism. But if you look to the right here, you see a circular spectrum. So I challenge you to think of someone being in different parts on this spectrum. So like with language, as you can see, I'm able to speak to you, present here. So I might be a little higher here somewhere in language. In motor skills, I'm the clumsiest person in the world. I am always bumping into things. I had to be taught how to run when I joined the military because they told me they didn't know what I was doing, but that was not running. So motor skills, I'm a little bit differently. I might be somewhere here, right? Perception. I'm one of those people who feels people's emotions when they're in a room. I know when my friends are having problems with each other, I can feel it. I'm uncomfortable. It feels like a cloud of pressure to me. So my perception is usually off the charts. However, executive functioning, I was late coming here, y'all. Either I got the wrong address or the Uber driver thought they knew what they were talking about and took me to the wrong place. And then I had to walk here. It was just a lot. I struggle with executive functioning. And then I have sensory processing disorder. And we're going to talk about what that is because it affects about 70 to 80% of autistic people and how much that affects your world and your child's world. Okay. And so think of a circular spectrum where we are a spectrum on each of these 5 things. And so if you have met one autistic person, you have literally met one autistic person. Yes. So let's talk about sensory. So we're going to go back to my Padlet, which I am going to make sure that Spark makes available to you all. It has everything from resources. We're not going to get through everything that's on here. I promise you. Camille pays me to do this for 9 weeks with families. So all of this information won't be gone over today, but we'll try to get through a good gist of it. So the first thing we're going to talk about is senses. You have 8 senses, not 5. I know you've been told 5 all the time. There's a reason for that. It's a little complicated. Your senses are literally your foundation for how you understand your world. Every person's conception of this world that we live in, even this experience, the amount of people that are in this room is the amount of experiences happening in this room. Because every one of you has a separate experience because of how your sensory process feels and perception feels this experience is happening, right? This is how we understand our world. You get input from the world, you process it in your brain, and that is your world to you. So we have 8 senses. You know the 5 that everyone's been taught. I'm going to teach you 3 more. They are your internal senses. The first one at the top is interoception. Think of that as, how do you know you need to go pee? What signal or sense tells you that? How do you know you're hungry? How do you know you're thirsty? How do you know your armpits are sweaty? How do you know your heart is beating really fast, right? That is a sense internally letting you know those functions are happening, letting your brain know that they're happening so that some type of motor or thing can happen to take care of it, right? Now to the bottom left, we have vestibular sense. That is your sense of movement. You know how there are people who love to race and go really fast and drive their cars and swerve and move? And then there's people like me who get car sick when they do that and have to read books and pray. And then you know how there's people who love roller coasters and then there's people like me that can't even sit in a swing because when the swing moves, I get vertigo and I feel like I'm gonna throw up. That is your vestibular sense, your sense of movement, of gravity in relation to the world. Okay? All right, the next sense that you have not heard before is your proprioception sense. And this sense is important for what we talked about with motor skills. This is your sense of your body in relation to your body, your muscles, your cartilage, how you move, how you put toothpaste on a toothbrush with 2 separate hands doing 2 different movements. Grab a bottle with one hand and twist the cap. Proprioception, your body in movement on its own, right? So we're not going these in depth in what that means for us. So first is a visual sense. People always just think of what you see, but it's not, it's the orientation of what you see. It's how bright or how dark it is. It's what the colors actually are. It's the motion of what you see, things moving from one place to the other, the shape of what you see. All of that has to do with your visual sense, okay? When we're talking about taste, we're talking about sour, sweet, hot, cold, bitter, salty. We're also talking about texture, even though that's more of a tactile, but when you're eating something, the texture of it is a sensory experience as well, right? And you have sensory tactile taste buds on your tongue. Auditory, when we're talking about noise, it's not just loud or quiet. It's the frequency of it, it's the pitch of it, it's the volume of it. My oldest daughter is a sensory seeker, but when there's a whole bunch of different noises from different places, because she has ADHD and she's trying to focus on every conversation, she gets overwhelmed. But she loves some rock music blasting at the top of his lungs. But she can't deal with a whole bunch of different voices and conversations all happening at once very loud, right? So different types of frequency, pitch, amplitude, volume can also be a part of that sense. When we're talking olfactory, we're talking the fact that smell is very, very closely tied to your emotions, to your amygdala, which processes your emotions, right? So I tell people all the time, take things like chores, like taking out the trash, might really affect the child who has sensory processing disorder. Because that smell may be overwhelming to them. They might be ready to pass out from them old poopy diapers that your youngest child has in there. So smell is a big part of this. Your chores, your hygiene. A lot of people can't do that scentsy stuff, the good smelling stuff. They can't do all of those things, or they will not do their hygiene. Eating. Also, if it don't smell good, I'm not touching it. I tell my mom all the time, I'm country, I'm from Georgia. My mom tries to get me to eat chitlins. I'm like, Mom, they smell like that. That will never go in my mouth. It's not gonna happen. Vestibular, the nuisance, right? So you got a child who loves spinning all the time? Yeah. You got a child who loves climbing everything, jumping? Yeah. Loves swinging on hammocks, swinging left to right, swinging from wherever they go. Loves going fast in the cars or something and always saying faster, faster, faster. That is their vestibular sense, their sense of movement. And we're going to talk about being a sensory seeker versus a sensory avoider when we break down sensory processing. Your proprioception sense, depth perception. It's why I always bump into things because I don't realize how far away it is or how close it is to me. It's why I always get something on my shirt because I don't realize where my mouth is when I'm moving the fork in there. Tiptoeing. Do you have one that walks on your toes? I used to say I walk on my toes because I always wanted to wear heels. That's why I walk on my toes. But no, it is a proprioception sense, our idea of what our body is doing, right? Your posture, how you walk. Does your kid walk hunched over or do they walk straight and forward? That's a part of their posture, proprioception. Fine gross motor, writing, tying shoes, all of those different things. Being clumsy like me, even pushing and pulling, right? The idea of knowing how to push and pull your body, how you fall. I fall. Every time I fall, I hurt something else from the fall because I cannot fall with grace at all. So, absolutely, proprioception. And tactile, your clothes. Tags feel like stab wounds. Okay? They are too much. The actual texture of your clothes, right? Are there seams in there? That feels weird. This one random seam line that keeps rubbing against my skin. That might feel very weird to your child. So the texture of your clothes, the makeup of the clothes, that's important. Chores, I tell people all the time, again, country girl, my mom makes dish water and then puts all the dishes in the dishwater and you're supposed to clean them. And then you touch in the water and it's like this slimy food that came off someone's plate and it's the most excruciating back curling feeling in the world, okay? So since doing chores and things that you might need to make sure your child has gloves if you want them to do that chore, right? Shoes. Shoes are important. We have to walk, we have to wear shoes. They need to be comfortable to us. So people ask me all the time, they're like, what is the shoe thing? It could be two things. It could be that you have a sensory seeker. Believe it or not, you have a lot of sensory in your feet. So if they're a sensory seeker, they may want to feel everything on the ground. So those shoes got to go. But if they're not, it could be that those shoes are not comfortable. And I don't want uncomfortable shoes on my feet 24/7 because it hurts. And there's a lot of sensory in your feet. Pressure. I give church hugs. Everybody always laughs. It don't matter who it is. Even my husband sometimes gets church hugs because I'm very particular about how people touch me. I do not like massages. I used to make myself get them when I was in the military because I knew it was necessary. But pressure touching on me, I feel like you're trying to kill me. Get up off me. I do not like it. Hygiene. Again, when we're talking tactile, brushing your teeth. Think about how that feels if you are very sensitive. You got bristles just going all over your gums and your teeth and everywhere. That is a part of the issues that you have with hygiene. It could be sensory based, touch, period. Some people do not like to be touched. And then eating, right? Because food still has texture. And last, interoception sense, heart rate, your visceral sensations. So actually knowing that you have a stomach ache or knowing that you have some knee pain, internal pain sensations, right? How do you know that? Sensory. A sense tells you something's going on with your body. Hunger and thirst, somatic sensations. So that's that outside pain that might be happening. I have a burn mark here. It's always fun to talk about. I was 1, 2, and I was standing next to the electric heater. And my grandma says that tears were coming down my eyes, but I was just standing there and she had to move me off because for some reason I really had trouble realizing when I was hurting myself. So I got marks, I got those knee marks, all everything. Okay. Actually breathing, going to the toilet. This is where toileting comes in a lot. Sometimes it's a sensory issue because you still get signals to tell you, hey, you need to pee. Right? And some people may not be getting them as well, or they may be getting them overloading. We'll talk about that. And itching and temperature actually regulation. Like right now, it's cold in Chicago, but I stay hot. I'm sweating right now. I am always sweating. My body does not regulate its temperature very well. I'm the person who in the wintertime still has a fan on them at sleep when it's 69 degrees. I have to, my body, otherwise I will sweat in my sleep. So yes, so those are the senses. So let's talk about sensory processing disorder. This is how I like to explain it in layman's terms. Because this isn't a science class, layman's terms, right? So you are laying on a bed of grass. How your body works is when you lay on that bed of grass, you get signals to your brain. We call them neurons, and they're saying, hey, you're laying on this grass. Hey, it's green. It smells like this. It's itchy. All of your senses get a little signal to your brain. That's how it happens regularly for typical people. I always do my quotes for typical people because I'm not sure what's typical. But let's say you have sensory processing disorder. You are autistic. What's happening, you're laying on that grass and you may be getting too many signals to your brain for each of those sensory experiences. So for you, that grass feels like razor blade. For you, that smell is overwhelming. For you, the clouds and everything, the sun is baking on your face. Why are we doing this? Why are we out here? I'm itchy. The sun is stabbing me. The blades of glass are stabbing me. Why are we out here? And so you do a visceral response to that. You feel like you are threatened, right? And so you may get upset. We call these people sensory avoiders because for the sensory experiences, they're getting, and this is neurological, not in their thoughts, not make believe, but their brain is getting more signals to it for that sensory experience. And so there it feels like the grass is stabbing. It feels like somebody sprayed a whole bunch of air conditioner of grass, perfume of grass in their nose. It feels like the sun is trying to bake them in the oven because that's what their brain processes, right? So let's go to the other end. Let's say I'm laying on that grass and I'm like, man, I don't really feel the grass. I'm gonna roll in it. Roll. Let me smell it. Oh, let me taste it. Let me chew this grass. I don't know. Let's see. That is a sensory seeker. And what's happening, sensory processing wise, is they're not getting as many signals to their brain for that sensory experience. And so their brain says more. And so your sensory seeker is like, let's do it on the grass. Let's eat the grass. Let's breathe in the grass. I get grass. That is sensory processing disorder, right? So is it easy, Tasha? It should be. That means that it should just be one or the other one. No, life ain't easy. Life is never easy, right? So sensory seeker. Your sensory seeker may tend to make all types of noise. They just verbal stimming out of nowhere. All the time, right? Their sensory seeker may struggle with toileting because they're not getting enough signals to let them know, hey, you gotta pee. So they may either don't know they have to pee until they have to pee, or they're not feeling it at all, right? Your sensory seeker may need to move, bounce, spin, jump, run all the time. Your furniture look a hot mess. You don't want people to come over. You like, geez, Louise. They may tend to love touching and being touched. When I was a brand new postpartum mom, I told my husband, I think she wants time in my skin. She already on my lap and she just keep touching me, crawling all over me. So they want that touch. They tend to love deep pressure, being wrapped in blankets, having their parents just lay on them, big bear hugs, right? They may tend to enjoy crashing into people and things. I'm not joking about the crashing. My daughter used to run her head into my butt, just and then laugh and run away. I'm like, what's happening? They may tend to put everything in their mouth and chew. Now they're not swallowing it. If they're swallowing it, that's pica. And you need to get with your pediatrician and figure things out. But if they're just chewing their books, things you even know they love, you're like, what you doing? You love this toy. Why you messing it up? Sensory seeking, not getting enough sensory there. Exactly. They may tend to not notice or care if their hair is all in their face, they got shoes on wrong, they ready to go, and you like this. They're not getting as many signals to their brain to tell them that sensory experience is happening. And then you have your sensory avoider. Sensory avoider may not like bright lights and loud noises. My baby, youngest baby, was 1 year old. She's the only 1 year old I know who kept her sunglasses on. And she stepped outside and like the sun was killing her at 1 year old. So we were like, let's get her some shades. So she was the coolest 1 year old ever. And she wore shades everywhere. And every loud noise, she'll say, Mommy, what's that loud? And it could be somebody closing the door. Mommy, what's that loud? And I'm like, it's just the door closing. It's okay. They may tend to be sensitive to smells. Nobody can doubt it in our house because Riley knows and she smelled it, okay? And she is telling on you. So no, she knows every smell. She knows when I'm cooking beans. She knows when I'm cooking greens. She knows all the smells. They may tend to get anxious or overwhelmed with too much bouncing and spinning. So if you have two little autistic kids and one is spinning and jumping and everywhere, they may not be able to roll together with that other one who's like, stop, why are you moving so much? Calm down. I experienced that. When I was like, oh, I have two girls. They're gonna be the best of friends. I'm gonna let them room together and have bunk beds. And as they got older and got them diagnosed, I was like, oh, this ain't gonna work. They both gotta have their own room. It can't happen. Oops, see, clumsy. I tend to not like being touched at all. Or if I do like being touched, if I trust you, I love you, and I'm okay with that, I'm very particular with how you touch me. My youngest used to tell me where to kiss her. Mommy, can I have a kiss? Here. It was very specific, and I'd be like, okay. And it may need to be light touching. They may not like those deep pressure hugs that we give black women. You know, the hug, the rock hug. They may not like that. That may not be their thing, and that's okay. I tend to become anxious with unexpected movement around me. So somebody else jumping and moving around, not just me bumping and bouncing, I may not be okay with. I may not be okay with you bumping and bouncing and doing everything, right? I tend to avoid certain food and textures. And I always tell people, I should probably change that word from avoid to something more serious. Because it's serious. I'm Black, I'm country. My grandma was like, that baby, if she get hungry enough, she will eat. She will not. You will be in the emergency room like my husband. So story time. I, postpartum, 8 months, had to have emergency surgery because I got gallstones and they got stuck between my small intestines and my gallbladder. And so I had to have emergency surgery immediately. So they gave me morphine, all of those drugs, and I was breastfeeding my child. So I'm in the hospital. My husband calls me panicking about all the formulas in the grocery store. She's not taking any of the formulas. And I'm like, what? I was like, there's some that are very close. I start researching. I'm like, did you try this one? Yes. Did you try this one? So then at the end of the day, he's like, I'm taking her to the hospital. I don't know. She's not taking anything. We go to the hospital. The hospital was trying to give her different formulas. She would not take them. Luckily, I had a little bit of a following on the internet. And so some moms donated breast milk, about 2 months of breast milk to me. And she took the breast milk. She knew the difference at 8 months from breast milk to breast milk. And it just continued as she got older. And it's still here now. We had to do 2 years of food therapy to get her to even try green foods. She still won't do any type of oranges, anything citrus is not happening. She tries though, which is great because we practice positive discipline. And one of the things we say is you have to try it. If you don't like it, you don't like it, but we got to try it. And so she tried a pineapple and she told me, it's burning my tongue. And I was like, oh my God, being so dramatic. How it's going to burn your tongue? And then I looked it up and she was accurate. Pineapple has enzymes that burn your tongue. And I didn't know this information. I looked it up after she told me that. So she taught me because she is such a sensory seeker that then those many neurons going on her brain were able to detect those enzymes burning her tongue. Now, I know you want to say, okay, Tasha, sensory seeker, sensory avoider, easy, right? But unfortunately, see that little blue in the middle? Life ain't never easy. I have the distinct pleasure of being a combo. So for me, it depends on the sense. So for tactile, I'm a sensory avoider, but for taste, I'm a sensory seeker. For smell, I'm a sensory avoider, but for sound, I'm a sensory seeker. So sometimes you have people who are combos, and it depends on the sense for where they fall if they have sensory processing disorder, right? Now, why is this all so important? Let's talk about the difference between tantrum and meltdown. Yeah. So they look very similar. Sometimes it's very confusing. I'll admit that because there's a lot of the same things happen. There's the hitting, there's the falling out, there's the kicking, there's maybe even some self-harm, banging of heads, hitting self. There's all kicking you, hurting you. Those things happen, throwing things. Those can look very similar in a tantrum, but they are different. And I'm going to explain how. A tantrum has a goal. Okay, it is not just something autistic people do. All small children do it too. You know why? Because they don't have communication skills to say what they really want to say, communicate with you how they feel. And that's their communication, right? And so if you have an autistic child, they may be struggling to communicate how they feel and doing that tantrum. But there's a goal. I want this or I don't want that. I want to do this or I don't want to do that, right? There's a goal of with that communication. And so therefore, it's important to have your attention because it's communication to you. Whatever that tantrum is doing, the goal is for you to understand, I want that or don't want that, or want to do that or don't want to do that, right? So your attention is needed because it's communication to you. If they get that, whatever that thing is, they're good. They might do a little, but you done gave them whatever they asked for, right? So they're good to go. However, if you don't, or if you are not an educator, a lot of teachers, educators, therapists, social workers have skills to calm down a tantrum, right? They know how to do social emotional learning to get to their level, have them do different somatic or sensory exercises and calm that tantrum down. That is possible when it's a tantrum. Now, if you don't do that and your child is autistic, a tantrum can turn into a meltdown. And so what's a meltdown? A meltdown, it does not have a goal. It is a sensory, social, or emotional overload. Again, a sensory, social, or emotional overload. So what do I mean by that? Well, we talked about sensory and we talked about sensory processing disorder. And so I told you that there are certain children who have, and I have one, I've seen the meltdowns. There's even a video in the resources. And so when you have a sensory avoider, especially, and they're going to, let's have fun, school. And there's fluorescent lights that are super bright in the classroom. And there's kids running around and joking and talking all throughout the day, right? And there's different smells that come up because kids are weird and they have different smells, right? And kids are poking her or touching her because that's what young kids do. They take your hand and they poke you and they try to talk to you. And that child is trying to keep it together to not get in trouble all throughout the day. And then they come home to you and you say, you want a peanut butter jelly sandwich for a snack? And they and you like, this is a tantrum because they don't want a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. But it may be a meltdown because I've been in school all day getting these sensory experiences, getting these emotional experiences, getting these social experiences, and I am tapped out. And then you ask me as I get home about a peanut butter jelly sandwich. You know, good way we just had a peanut butter jelly sandwich yesterday. And today is Tuesday, and on Tuesdays we do grilled cheese. And I'm done. And that's really what it is. So we would, in our brains as parents, would be like, okay, this tantrum is because of the peanut butter jelly sandwich. But it could be a meltdown because they are overwhelmed from all of that going on at school, right? Or from all of that going on at the birthday party. People always get surprised when a child has a meltdown at a birthday party. What happens at a birthday party? You got the dancing, whatever you done brought in, Spider-Man or whatever, all happening. You got the kids running around. You got people touching. You got games. That child, if they're high functioning or if they have low support needs, they're probably already masking to play with the kids and think about all the things they're supposed to do, like tell that kid that they like their shoes. Yes, we think about that. We script it. And I'm gonna tell Jessica, I like her shoes, and then we gonna play. So yes, they're doing all of those things in their head. And so by the time the cake comes out and people are singing, they're like, ooh, I'm about to blow. And then sometimes they do. Sometimes if you realize it, you might get them to a quiet space. You can get them to do coping strategies. You can get them to calm down. But if you don't know these things, they blow. And then you're like, what are you doing? It's a birthday party. They just brought out the cake. What's wrong with you? But they're overwhelmed sensory, socially, and emotionally. And when I guess I'll explain emotions. We're going to go to executive function, but also they're a kid. Emotions are hard as a kid. They're hard as adults. So they're hard for kids. And there's a lot of emotions that come with school, that comes with playing with other kids who may or may not like your shoes after you tell them that you like their shoes. There's a lot going on there. And so the kids are processing that with a different type of brain, and it can be overwhelming. Now, why is this important? Because the way you go about responding to a tantrum is not the way you go about responding to a meltdown. When I respond to a tantrum, I'm usually very direct in getting with that child and helping them to calm down with whatever coping strategy works best for them, getting them to let them know I'm there, giving them some type of connection, whether that be a hug or if they're not a hugger, maybe we're doing some type of activity together to let them know I'm here for them. And then once they're fully regulated, talking about why you tripping, because you're not gonna be acting like this over a peanut butter jelly sandwich. You can use your words, right? So we're gonna have that conversation after we regulate. I'm not doing none of that with a meltdown. With a meltdown, I am removing whatever has got us there. So if we are at the birthday party, all right, time to leave. Everybody pack up. It's time to go. We got to go. If we are at the grocery store, yes, I have looked at that grocery shopping bag and come on, I guess I come back and get those groceries and get out of that grocery store. If I'm removing whatever has got us there, and you're gonna have to ride the wave. I tell people all the time, as an autistic 34-year-old, I still have meltdowns. I now am able and educated enough in myself to know when they're coming, and I can communicate with my people. Hey, I'm not in the best space. I need like half a day. Don't bother me. But autistic people have meltdowns because our brains, our sensory, our executive functioning, our motor skills, our perception is different, and this world does not support that. And so if we're having to navigate this world, we are going to have meltdowns. What you can do as parents is mitigate how many meltdowns are happening by supporting your child with their sensory, with their executive function, with their perception, with their communication. Okay? So let's see a video. It's, I've been talking a lot. Y'all been sitting a lot. I don't like that because autistic. So, so I'm going to show you a video of a sensory seeker and a sensory avoider doing the exact same activity. And you tell me if you can spot some of the differences in that, okay?
One question.
Absolutely, go ahead.
When your sensories are coming together and they're combining,
Yes.
your anxiety, how do you decipher the difference between your anxiety, the meltdown coming?
Ooh, that's a great, for me, when it's happening, I can't. So I have to eliminate both. What question? Oh, if you having anxiety coming in at the same time that maybe you might be having overwhelming sensory sensations happening. How can you decipher which is happening? And I'm going to tell you, as a person who has general anxiety disorder, PTSD, and autism, that sometimes, and even my therapist said, sometimes you are not going to know, because you can have anxiety just for being a person. I have general anxiety. I literally was like, okay, what if they don't like how I present? What if they don't like what I wear? What if I show up late? What if I go to the wrong building? I'm worried about regular everyday things. But then I have trauma anxiety because I have PTSD. So I have trauma anxiety from not saying the right things and people laughing at me. I have trauma anxiety from people looking at what I wear and picking on me because I was a very poor child when I grew up. Those type of things, right? And then I have sensory anxiety because I'm gonna go to a building, they're not gonna care about my sensory needs, and it's gonna be loud, and it's gonna be weird. And so sometimes if you have all of that going on, you can't sit there and be like, well, is this the PTSD or the general anxiety but I just gotta eliminate myself. But I also communicate that with the people around me. I'm comfortable in doing that now because I'm educated and I know that about myself now, right? So I'll be like, hey, this is too much, y'all. And they'll be like, you out? I'm out. I'm gone. Or if it's more of a professional setting, I'll speak up and be like, I can't present here with all of these. Can we turn down some lights? Can we? Or maybe somebody else, maybe you need somebody else to present. Maybe I'm not your person. So it's about sometimes when you're in the moment, and this is a whole nother class. It's called Chickadee Check Yourself Before You Wreck Yourself. But when you are in a high stress state, you don't have your prefrontal cortex. And your prefrontal cortex is what has your reasoning, your morality, all the things grandma taught you, all the education that you got, all of that is in your prefrontal cortex. But what happens is when you're in a high stress state, we call it you flip your lid. And so all you have is your brain stem. That's that fight, flight, freeze, or foam. So you either finna get up out of there, you're gonna freeze up because you don't know what to do. You're going to fawn, which is to people please everybody to get up out of there, right? But you're gonna fight for your life. You're gonna talk or verbally fight or fight to get out of that high stress situation. And so you don't have the prefrontal cortex, which is the brain power, to be there to say what kind of anxiety this is. You just have to protect yourself and do that proper coping strategy. Absolutely. If you want to, so what are some differences you notice between that sensory seeker and that sensory avoider? Absolutely. You want that? She want that. I have video of that girl painting her forehead and then putting her forehead on the paper and looking and being so excited doing another color. So yes, she wants to feel the paint. She wants to do all the experience. If you know, she's not even really sitting in the chair. She's kind of side squatting in the chair. She's making verbal stems. She's making noise. And then my sensory avoider. Y'all see that cover bib? You're not getting any paint on Miss Riley. She's not having it. She's using her utensils because she doesn't want it on her fingers. It's a very different experience for them, right? So you say, okay, Tasha, you've taught us about the senses. You've told us how they affect your children. What can we do? What do we do about this? So there's something called a sensory diet. Now, first off, if your child is diagnosed, and especially if they're going to OT or occupational therapy, get with their occupational therapist and say, hey, I want to develop a sensory diet at home for my child, not just here at therapy. Can you help me with that? Because that's their job. And if you're already paying those co-pays for the insurance or whatever you're doing, get your money's worth. But maybe you don't have access to occupational therapy because there's 500 wait lists, because there's very few good reputable centers, whatever the issue may be, right? How do you do that at home? So you first are going to do exactly what Camille said. You're going to be the detective for your child. So you're going to figure out if your child is a sensory seeker or a sensory avoider or a combo, and figure out what sensory your child needs. Now, I had the great pleasure of having my sensory seeker be the poop master. Every time she was getting in that poop and smearing it everywhere, and I was like, oh, Jesus, I don't think I'm ready for this. I don't think I can do it. And so, but that was her saying, I want squishy stuff, right? I want to play with squishy things. And so we started making squishy things available. We started regularly having Play-Doh for her to squish. Same consistency as poop. We sand, that kinetic sand, same consistency as poop. Slime, there's always at all times in my house a big jug of glue and a big jug of contact solution and baking soda, so I can randomly make slime at any time. Because same thing, squishy consistency, right? She's also my mover and shaker. She's always spinning, she's always moving, she's always doing things. So eventually, my husband is Jamaican and Panamanian, and I'm Black American, right? He's Southern Black American. And so his culture believes in a Jamaican living room, which is a living room that nobody touches. And it looks very nice, but you don't go on it. And then the den is where a family goes to sit and watch TV and do their thing, right? And we had to let go of the Jamaican living room. His mom was so upset with us, and I was like, hey, this is our life. We got autistic children, we have to support them. So we let go of the Jamaican living room, and that's our regular family living room. And the den became the children's sensory playroom. And so I'm going to show you a sensory playroom. Let's see if I can. No, I don't want to log in. Let's pause it. Let's make this big. Perfect. So this is when they were really small. As you see, the little jumper area where they can jump, climb, do all the different things. Those balance things, I told you, sensory feet. They like those type of things. I got one of the old nice couches and put a couch cover on it. You want to climb a couch? Climb that couch, not my couch. And then different toys that they can learn and grow with and build and do different things with. And this is Paris. She's my sensory seeker and my minimum speaking baby. And you see, she always got rock music or dance electronic music playing, even when she's doing activities. That's a script. That's her way of telling me she's ready to eat. That means it's time to go eat. Communication is what we are going to talk about next, and that's why I showed that video. Wait, what are my timestamps? Because I'll talk forever. I'll have these families here for a long time. Okay. So, communication. First, I want to say that I cannot move this down. Yes, I can. Ha ha ha. That the reason why your child does not speak could be from a lot of things, right? A lot of times people are so focused on getting their child to speak that they are eliminating an opportunity to connect and understand your child. So let me give you, we talked about sensory and proprioception and tactile and all of that. So I want you to think about how many muscles and body parts you use just to say two. You got your teeth, you got your tongue, you got your jaw muscles, you got your esophagus, you got your larynx. All of that is working together to get that sound out of your mouth, right? So if I'm a child who may be struggling sensory-wise with moving my body and doing those gross motor, I may struggle to actually get those words out. My oldest, who's minimum speaking, she does a lot of looking at our mouth and smiling as we're talking to her. So it may actually be a struggle of getting all of those muscles and different body parts to work together to make those words, right? That could be one. The next is audio processing. I have audio processing disorder. I forgot to tell you. I got half the DSM-5, but anyway, audio processing disorder can look like you just have a delay. So what it means for me is a lot of times I have to watch people's mouth when they're speaking to me because I have to have a visual of what they're saying for it to process in my ear. If I'm just hearing it, sometimes there's a delay for me. And so that if you can hum, you can hear, that's not true for me. Usually when I hum, I'm giving myself extra time to process what you said. But since I'm from Georgia and my mom used to slap me for hum, I say, ma'am, to process what you said. But it's a processing delay, right? And then there's some people who really just can't process auditory language and they need visuals. And that can also be a reason why you don't speak. If you struggle to process and hear people speak, you may struggle to say words and speak, right? The next one is going to be language processing. So I'm going to let a video tell you instead of me telling you. Y'all might be tired of hearing me talk. So we're going to talk about Gestalt language versus analytical language that everyone knows and loves. Oh, Laura is low. Let's see if I can get Laura higher. Volume, 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 volume. Oh, maybe I won't be able to get. Oh, here we go. Go to the computer. Share sound. No, share sound. Oh, yes, share sound. Thank you. Let's see.
Here at Emerge Pediatric
She's
Therapy.
just low.
And today I wanted to talk to you all about one of the new hot topics in speech therapy, which is Gestalt language processing. So one of the most...
Is there a way to turn it up a bit? Oh, I see some. Here we go. But I think we're all the way up. Yeah.
It might be on the computer too, or you got it from the computer.
Yes, hit this. I think that's on the computer, but let me just be sure. Let's go out of here. Let's go to my speaker here.
Yeah. Oh,
Yep.
no, that's
It's all the way up. I don't know why she's so low.
yeah. Any thoughts? Is there another volume control anywhere?
Stable at volume. Maybe
I feel like
The most important things to know.
there we go.
Yep. Okay, there we go.
Perfect. Thank you.
Before we start talking about ways to support your child who may be using Gestalt language processing, is the difference between analytical and Gestalt language processing. Analytic language development is the way that we think about most children learning how to access language and learn about it. So the way language is developed with analytic language learners is they learn words as being a single unit, and they slowly expand on that with time. So first they might understand go, then they might start saying let's go, then they might start saying let's go to the store. Gestalt language learners often learn language where an entire script or chunk or sentence is learned as carrying one set of meaning. So this often presents as scripting or echolalia in some of our kids. So they might learn, let's go to the store, and that means let's go. And so the way they develop language is going to look really different. So they might start by saying, let's go to the store. Then they might start changing out one part of that to say, let's go to Emerge, let's go home. And then you'll see them gradually start using those chunks of language in more flexible ways. Lots of children are Gestalt language processors, and lots of children are maybe both analytic and Gestalt language processors. So it's really important that we take bits and pieces of what we know about how your child is developing language and support them in that growth. So often what Gestalt language processing looks like in younger children especially is jargoning or echolalia or scripting. And so your child might be saying a line that they heard from a movie over and over again, which is really common, particularly in autistic children. And so it's our job as the people who are supporting your children to figure out what those scripts mean. They are often really intonationally rich, so you'll hear a lot of up and down and a lot of rich melody to that speech, and they're often very strongly tied to emotional experiences. It's also important to keep in mind that the gestalt you hear from your child are rarely literal. So your child might be saying, zoom, 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 we're going to the moon. And that doesn't mean every time that they're pretending to go to the moon, like in this show. It could mean, I want to play with you, or it could mean, let's go. And so it's really important that we don't take these gestalts at face value, but we instead dig to figure out what their meaning could be. So next we need to know a little bit about how we can support our children who use Gestalt language processing. The number one thing to keep in mind is that echolalia always communicates. Every time you hear your child scripting or jargoning, there is communicative intent. If you know what that intent is, then you should reinforce that because that's extremely validating for your child. Lots of autistic adults still rely on this type of communication, and having people recognize it as a valid form of communication has done wonders for their self-image and for how validated they feel as communicators. If you aren't sure what this script means, then it's important to acknowledge that you heard them, but don't go out of your way to assign meaning because this can be frustrating. Aside from acknowledging your child's gestalts and scripting, there are several tangible things that you can do to support their language development. The first thing is reduce asking questions. Instead, model gestalts. So the recommended gestalts that you might use include let's, it's, and I'm statements. The more you model this, the more likely your child might be to pick up on these really important examples of how to communicate with others. You can also tune into melody whenever you're modeling gestalts for your child, knowing that intonationally rich sentences are more tangible and more likely to be understood might mean that we model some of our gestalts and make them really rich in intonation for our children. It's also important to remember that these scripts are often deeply tied to emotion. So if you do the detective work, then it may give you really important clues as to your child's regulatory state on whatever their scripting is. One more thing you can do is start keeping a dictionary of your child's gestalts. That way, your speech therapist, your child's teacher, other members of your family can refer to that and know exactly what your child is communicating when they're using these different forms of communication. If you would like to learn more about Gestalt language,
That is all we need from her. So one of the ways that I realized that I need to get tested was when I learned about the stall process. So my first words were a sentence. I was a little chubby baby, and I could go up to whoever had food and say, "Ooh, what you got?" That was my first sentence. First word was a sentence. And exactly, and then I started scripting the movies my families were watching. So my mom was like, I used to go around and be like, oh, my neck, my back, my neck, and my back. I copied and scripted the different things we watched, the different songs we listened to, and I started building my language from there. I also taught myself to read at 2. And that's called hyperlexia. And you'll also see that a lot of times. You'll see a child who doesn't speak regularly, but when they pass a poster or something on the wall, they're telling you what the words say. But if you ask them how they're doing today, they're like, why are you talking to me? Uh, so hyperlexia is actually a very big sign of Gestalt processing. The other things, speaking in third person, I still do this. I have these I'll talk about different eras of my life in third person. I'll be like, oh, that was military Tasha. I'm mom Tasha now. That's different. So talking about yourself in third person. The next one is pronoun reversals or just struggling with pronouns, period. My youngest Riley very much showed up like this with hyperlexia and Gestalt processing, which is how I saw that I needed to get tested. And she really struggled and was so embarrassed that she struggled with pronouns and would call boys call boys she and call girls he and different things like that. Um, Actually autistic or hyperlexic. We talked about hyperlexia. It is a child teaching themselves how to read before the age of 5. Now, here's where it's important though. A lot of times they're able to read and put together those words, but they are not fully comprehending what they are reading. And so I really struggled as I got to high school and college with comprehension because no, everybody was like, oh, she's reading, she's great. And they weren't focusing on asking me questions about what I read and getting into the in-depth of understanding and analyzing what I was reading. And everybody was just excited I was reading. You know, my time we had accelerated reader. I was a state accelerated reader. I got to go to Braves games and all types of things, but no one was making sure I was memorizing these things because visually I could see them and regurgitating it, but I wasn't actually comprehending and processing, right? So language seems delayed, but you're seeing, I call these minimum speakers because they are having some verbal language and communication with you, but they're just not able to do those back and forth conversations. They may not initiate conversations, right? Learns to speak in long scripts before single words, produces long strings of language that sound kind of like words, but not like words, like the minions. You're like, wait, are you speaking or are you speaking? Uses and focuses on rich intonation. Part of the reason why I am a great public speaker, even though I really struggle with social, emotional, and sensory support, is because I am of the thought process and autistic. Because I like to talk in different languages and move my body and get people engrossed in stories and in information. And that has to do with this thought processing. Musical, same thing. And language use is situational, meaning I tell people all the time, it was so funny because one of the main things that people identify young children when you do the early intervention for being autistic is if they answer to their name. And I said, but that makes sense to me. Why would you just answer to someone calling your name if they didn't have any kind of action or question or anything behind it? You said my name, so what? Why do I need to look at you? And, and the doctor kind of looked at me, but they didn't say that at that point. But they probably should have sent me to get tested right there. So, anxiety, sensory, language processing, and audio processing are reasons why your child couldn't speak. And it isn't like it's just one, it could be one of those or a mixture of those. And so, instead of focusing on making them speak, let's focus on allowing them to communicate their needs and wants. How do we do that, right? So what are some ways we can do that? Well, the first thing that we need to look at possibly, okay, I realized what I did here. I didn't list them out because I didn't want to. I wanted you to see videos. Isn't that fun? So the first thing to consider is ASL. I told y'all I decided I wanted to be that cookie cutter mom to stay at home with my kids. So when my kids were 3 months old, I was doing what they call baby sign language anyway, teaching them to say that they were hungry, that they wanted breast milk. I was already doing that. And that was very helpful once they got diagnosed with autism because we just kept on. I took ASL classes and I started trying to teach her to communicate with us in ASL because she wasn't communicating with us verbally. And believe it or not, even if it seems like that autistic kid isn't doing it or grasping it, they are.
And black.
So I was a mom blogger before I became this. I just didn't see any Black families who were breastfeeding, baby-led weaning, Montessori at home, and also Instagram and all these other places had this whole "it's perfect, look at this aesthetic, everything is dress right dress," and I was like, what are people who have look a mess but they still making it happen at? And so I decided to be that person. So that's what I was doing. And so this video is me getting caught completely off guard because I've been teaching and talking to her in ASL her whole life and she'd never been responding back. And then she just magically does it one day out of nowhere. So
Wait. Oh. We. Yeah, but. Oh,
That's white, baby. White is like this. White. White. Red. Orange. Green. Blue. Yellow. Black. Black. White. Purple. Red.
and it just goes to her continue. Because the only reason why she did it is because she pointed and I didn't do my job. So she was like, let me tell her what to do. And so I got my first time of her speaking and signing at the same time. So a lot of times they're retaining, but again, language for them is situational. Why should I have to say it? You say it all the time. I just got a point. And so that taught me a lesson because I was that proactive mom that was like, oh, let me do this for her. Let me do this for her. And I realized that she is very logical. And why do I need to do this if you do it for me? Why do I need to say this if you already know what I want, right? And so giving her opportunities to say and do and request instead of just preemptively doing for made me realize that I was being a little bit ableist and I needed to allow her some independence and capability to show up, right? So ASL is an option. The other option is going to be what we call using scripts. So she talked about the fact that scripting is communication. Get comfortable with those scripts. Get comfortable with the idea that you may be talking in movie quotes. You may be talking in TV show quotes. You may be talking in songs. Our daughter will play, hey, 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 it's time to go. When she ready to go from our family event? She just bring her little iPad and play the song. Like, okay, we're gonna go, right? Car. I'm like, okay. So you may be communicating in scripts. And so this is an example of me using a script that my children were using at the time, which was they were watching Daniel Tiger and Word Party were their shows at these times. And I think I was trying to get my youngest, who does have a very big vocabulary, to use her words because she was whiny. So
Words to be understood.
ooh, that's loud. Let's see if I can fix it.
There's a word for this. There's a word for that. Use Riley, would you like to use your words to tell mommy what you're upset about? Could you use your words, please? Please. Do you need help? Sure. There's a word for this. There's a word for that. Use your words to say where you're at. Happy, sad, feeling not so good. Use your words to be understood.
So that was their script. So I said, okay, we're going for a script. I'm gonna get in it. So let's do it. And you communicate with their scripts if that's what you need to do. But then finally, we talk about AAC devices. AAC devices are not an enemy, they are a friend. Your child may never speak. I have autistic adult friends who do not speak, but they communicate just fine because they can type and they can write. They write, I had a autistic adult Black female who just participated in my parenting summit, who was on a panel. And the way she participated is she wrote out her full response to all of our questions. And then she had somebody else read that out for her. That's still her participating and giving her opinion and perspective and being able to have her autonomy. Your child's life, there are plenty of places and jobs where you don't have to talk to nobody and you can just type. So being okay with the idea that their future may look different, but they can still have a future if you support them, right? So AAC devices, there we go. I'm like, where is my stuff? It's right here. Let me get my head out of the way. So AAC devices are great, and there's a certain way that you want to use them to teach them.
Hey everybody, Carrie Clark here with SLP Solution and Speech and Language Kids. Today I'm going to show you how to teach a child a new word on his or her AAC device, or talker, as sometimes these are called. So AAC stands for Augmentative and Alternative Communication, and it's any sort of communication that we can offer to a child who's not yet able to speak their message to get their wants and needs met. So today we are going to be using this iOS device with the app called Touch Chat. And there are a lot of different types of AAC, but this is the one I'm going to show you today. And really anything that you want to use for this, pictures, sign language, a talker, it all works the same way. So it's the same steps. And I have my Pop the Pig game, and he's going to help me out today too. All right, so the first step when you're teaching a child a new word using an AAC system is to choose just one word to focus on for now and to hide all the rest. So you can see here, I just have the eat button available and I have hidden all the other buttons. And most AAC apps or devices like this will have a hide mode. So you can hide everything that you don't need. If you're using a picture, then you're just going to have that one picture out. So we are going to use eat today. So I have hidden all the rest of the words. That's step one. Choose one word, hide the rest. Step two then is to model. So we're going to sit down with the child and we have these little hamburgers. We are going to say eat and we're going to use the AAC. So we want to use both our voice and the talker while we are having the pig eat. Okay, so we can say, hamburger, eat. Eat burger, and we make him eat. And then we can have the child feed him a hamburger, and while the child's feeding him, we can say, eat burger. So we can make it super fun, but we're continuing to push that button. So that's step two, is model. Step three then is going to be to prompt and wait. So for this, we're going to need to hoard the burgers because if the child has free access to all the stuff, then they don't really have a need to communicate. So create some sort of communication need, and then you're going to prompt and wait. Sometimes our children need lots of wait time. Sometimes they pick it up really quickly. So we say, burger, eat. Oh, sorry. Eat, and then we push it. Eat, and then we wait. And you should wait longer than you feel like you should. If you start to lose their attention, of course, bring them back and keep going. But try to give them that opportunity to process through what's happening and what you expect of them. If they don't push it, maybe they reach for the burger instead, you can gently guide their hand toward the device if they will let you. If they don't want you to touch them, don't touch them. But if you can kind of help them get to there, or you can give them prompts by saying push button, push eat. You do it. So you can help them, you can prompt them, give them opportunities to do that. And then if they just straight up won't, then you just go ahead, eat. You push it and you hand it to them. So then they're getting that reinforcement of, oh, when the button gets pushed, I get this thing. So they're starting to associate the words. Now we might stay at this step for weeks or months. It might take a very long time before that child is ready to do this on their own. We just have to be patient. We have to keep prompting, keep providing that reinforcement, and provide this in different situations as well. So you're going to keep doing that. You're going to prompt and wait. Ideally, they will start to push it on their own when they want the thing that you're giving them. You can try this with different activities. So maybe you say, okay, now we're going to get some actual food to eat, and we try that. You can do it at snack time, at meals. Just bring this one word in over and over again. So then step 4 is going to be to integrate. So that can mean a couple of things. It can mean integrating this one word into different settings. So like I said, snack time, meal time, anytime that you're doing something with toys that are eating, like our little Papa Pig man, that can be integrating, or it can be integrating in the other words that you've already taught and bringing those back onto the device. So now maybe we have other choices of words and you're still expecting them to find that eat. So that is the next step, is expanding their use of that word into different settings and with more options available on the screen. Once you get through that, then you can start over with a new word. But again,
So let's say, Tasha, we are a family with a disabled child. We can't afford an iPad and then the $300 app and then all the other things that come with an AAC device. That is the reality I have with a lot of parents. You can make your own AAC book. That's what I did initially because I was a family on a budget. So visual aids, you can have, I used to have a poster on the fridge that had the food that was in the fridge so she could point to what she wanted to eat on the fridge so she could have autonomy and pick what she wanted to eat, right? So it does not have to be these electronic. Thank God we live in 2024. It's amazing what technology has given us, but you don't have to if you're uncomfortable with maybe technology, because I have had families that told me that. They're like, Tasha, we don't do all of that. So you can have a book that does the exact same thing. Allow you to put in actions together and pictures and allow that child to communicate without the technology aspect. Maybe you don't want your child on the internet. You don't want them looking at videos. You don't want all that technology in your house. Maybe they have ADHD and you think it's going to be distracting because they're going to go to games instead of communicating. Whatever your reason, we can find a way to still
One of the
communicate.
goodies that we just got for Paris. So this is her visual book. It goes by, many different names. The person who told us about it and gifted us to us told us we didn't just have to use the PEG system, but we are studying the PEG system. So they're plastic, so she can't, chew and eat them. Today we did this sentence to ask for more pancakes, but it has foods, multiple foods, and I'll make more. It has toys, more toys, school, different things, like our speech therapy and occupational therapy, computer lunchbox, places that we could go. Then you have home acts, so setting the table, getting dressed, washing hands, brushing teeth, so we can build sentences and communicate there. Signs, and different things, like I want, please, your turn, help, yes and no, and some emotions, and then some actions. Dance, cut, listen to music, blow. And then we also got her a timer, very visual, so that we can talk about time frames. So we're really excited about that too. So yeah, that's what we just recently got, Paris. So buzzer sounds really good for Riley to maybe signal.
Okay, there we go. Thank you. Thank you, Tasha. All right. So communication can come in from just visual aids that you have in your house. It could be a communication book. It can be an AAC device. It can be ALC. But also, most of us have our own cultures in our household, and you have gestures and certain things that you do. That is communication. My husband, like I said, is Jamaican and Panamanian. His Panamanian family will say "mira," and they'll point their lips, and everybody knows where to look. That is communication. So you also have body language that comes with communication, and it's okay to use that too, right? But what I would like to focus on now, since we're talking about communication, is something that I've developed called the Common Corner, because a big part of communication that we struggle with is social and emotional communication, right? So how we're feeling and how we calm our feelings down. It is a struggle for us for two reasons. We talked about sensory, but also our executive function is what tells us what's going on with our body and how we're feeling. And sometimes our executive function is a little wonky. So we might struggle. I struggle all the time. I will tell my husband that I'm not okay and I need space, but he'll say, "What's wrong?" I don't really know sometimes. I don't know if I'm mad or sad. I just know I'm not okay. And sometimes that's the first step, and that's okay. And you need to get somewhere and regulate, and then maybe you can figure it out. And that's a lot of times what's happening with your children. So something that I created, I call it, no, that's not it, but thank you, the Cool Common Corner. And what it is a visual aid device for you to walk your child through emotional regulation. Okay. So first thing is talking about what's happening. When you have a tantrum as a kid, when you feel highly stressed and you feel threatened or you feel upset as an adult, you have a high stress response. And we talked about this. You are flipping your lid. You're losing your prefrontal cortex that has your reasoning, morality, traditional teachings, and you have your memories from your past and your amygdala saying fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And it's decided by those memories in your past, right? So if you had a rough childhood like me, your brain, your memories and your amygdala might be telling you to do some very negative things. And so we have to regulate ourselves so that we're not doing that. So the 4 C's of a high stress response: fight, confront the threat; flight, run or get away from the threat; freeze, shut down from the threat; and fun, appease the threat. Okay. So I talk about exactly what I just told you all, but I put it in kid terms. Lose my mind. If you're in that high stress state, you are in survival state. That's the official name of it. But for kids, I call it animal brain, dinosaur brain. I'm not thinking safe clearly. I'm just raw. I'm angry. I'm upset, right? I don't feel safe. And then a lot of people think you just go from that survival state to completely being good. But there's a middle state in there that I call for my kids the water brain. And the technical term is the emotional state. And that's where you need that connection and you feel like you need to be validated, right? So you ever had a rough time, a high stress situation happen at work, and then you go to your friend or your partner and you're like, and then she said, how dare you? You're wanting to connect with someone and share and feel validated in what you felt in that high stress situation. That's that middle ground before you're fully regulated. And children have that too. And that's when they're doing that, and they want the hugs and the love, and they want to be reminded that you still love them even though they had that rough time frame, right? And then you get back to computer state, or what the official name is, executive state, and that's where you're calm and you're ready to problem solve. So in order for us to do that, we need to do my 4 C's of high stress response, which I call chickadee check yourself before you wreck yourself, right? So the first C is to check. You need to track and notice the sensations that are happening in your body. So what happens when I know I'm upset and I tell my husband I need space, I need an hour or two, give me space. And he's like, what's wrong? And I'm like, I don't know yet, just give me space. That's the first thing I do. I'm tracking. Are my armpits sweating? How's my chest feeling? Is my heart beating fast? Is the back of my neck gets red hot? And like, so I'm checking my body to feel what's happening with me because that's going to give me some insight into what I'm feeling, right? What's going on with my body? How do I feel? Once I identify that, I'm going to do certain strategies to calm myself down. Now, this is important. I want you to understand this because it's also probably true for you, but it's definitely true for your children. For a long time, I was doing maladaptive coping strategies because the ones that doctors and psychologists and internet people suggest weren't helpful to me. I can't meditate. When I close my eyes and try to do the homes, my brain is everywhere. I cannot meditate. Counting does nothing for me. Deep breaths, I struggle. When I'm upset, I'm taking shallow breaths. I really struggle with the deep breaths. Eventually, after doing a lot of training, a lot of studying, I learned that as a neurodivergent person, I need somatic and sensory regulation means before I can get to deep breathing and things like that. And that's probably true for your children as well. What I mean by that is literally sometimes what I do is start touching my nose with different hands. Bilateral movement helps to calm your body down. Sometimes it's just taking a walk, literally just going outside and taking a long walk till I can, movement gets me to calm down to where I can start doing that deep breathing. My oldest daughter, we jump on the trampoline sometimes. When she's mad, we jump the mad out. Or we beat on the drums. And you mad, beat that mad out. She beat it out on the drums, and then we can move to breathing. But everyone would come to me when I'm fired up and be like, just breathe. I can't breathe. Because I'm not in that space. But if I can do some type of somatic or sensory regulation, it can get me to that space to being able to breathe. But I have to do that first. And that may be true for your children. They may need to rip something up. So how about get a cardboard box and put construction paper in there? You can rip that mat out. And then once they got that ripped mat out, okay, now let's take breaths, right? So sometimes we need that movement, that somatic or sensory action. Then we're going to go to connection. Connection before correction or education creates a sense of safety and openness. Again, though, you have autistic kids. That connection may look different, and that's okay. You may have an autistic teen who does not want to hug you to connect. Maybe y'all watch a movie. Maybe y'all do a puzzle. Maybe y'all just have a saying that y'all say. Maybe it's a fist pound. Whatever, but you're connecting to let them know, hey, I love you. This is a safe space. You have big emotions. You had a rough time. We all make mistakes. Let's talk about it. So once you do that connection, which by the way, because I always get parents like, why he just acted, I'm not gonna hug him. It's not confirming the bad behavior. It's letting them know that they're a human and you still love them, and we're gonna talk about that behavior, right? So once you connect, then we go to correction. Correction can look very different for you too, but you're focusing on repairing solutions. We call this recognizing that that the child made a mistake, having them take accountability or responsibility for it, and then apologizing, reconciling wherever they need to for whatever happened, and then looking for solutions and a way forward, right? What can we do next time? What's a coping strategy you can do next time when you feel mad, or something that you can do next time so we don't get into this state again, right? That's what that's about. Now, correction for some of us who have children who don't even do back and forth conversation may look very different than what correction looks like for someone who has an autistic child who has a very vibrant vocabulary. And so you may use something like videos to do that correction, to talk about why we don't touch people in certain places, right? You may have a video, which I have, because this is a big one that people seem to forget, that yes, autistic people have sexual urges, and autistic kids, even when they become middle schoolers and adults, have the same urges as regular kids. And so maybe you're showing videos that help them to learn why their private parts are private, where babies are made from, why they need to understand that they can't touch their private parts around other people, and they can't touch other people's private parts. These may be videos that you show. It may also be what we call social stories. So I'm going to go to that, and then I'm going to leave room for questions because I talk all day. I told you I got a lot of information. So social stories are ways that you can communicate information if your child is not a back and forth conversator, right? So anything from visiting Santa and what that looks like to recess and how we handle recess on the playground, you may want to communicate to your child using a social story, right? So how does that look? Let's see here. I don't want to do that one. Let's do Common Corner social story. Come on now. So look, how I use my Common Corner. This is my Common Corner. The Common Corner is safe and a place I use to calm my body. Everybody has feelings. I feel happy, sad, or mad sometimes. All these feelings are okay. If any of these feelings are too big, I can use my Calming Corner. I can sit down and look at a book. I can take deep breaths. I can jump, whatever your child needs to do, right? I can hold a fidget toy. I can find something to use in my calming kit. My teacher might sit by me and help me calm my body. I can ask for a hug if I need one. Big feelings are normal. Using the Calming Corner can help me feel better if my feelings get too big. So maybe it's a social story. And this is for you saw some of the different social stories that they had there. It's not just for the Calming Corner. I just chose that one since we just talked about what a Calming Corner is. But anything from telling them what's going to happen when the fire drill happens at school. They may not understand that concept. Maybe you want to sit down and use a social story for that, right? That's a way of correction with them, okay? So I know that was a lot of information and we still didn't go over even half of what's in here, but does anybody have any questions?
We do full minutes for a question for you and the panel as a whole.
Okay, perfect.
So I would love if we can, while it's hot, lunch is here for everyone as
Yes,
well.
I think that's a great idea.
So, and we've been sitting for a while. So
Yes.
it's a bit of a break. A couple quick reminders. If anyone needs to use the restroom, out the way you came, to the left of the elevators. Food, there are, I know there's a variety of different needs. So there's labels of those types of pizza that's available in separate boxes for gluten-free for anyone who has that dietary need. And again, we will be convening back in the room. Feel free to come sit, eat the pizza, chat with Natasha, Camille, any of our other staff. We're here for to answer any questions or just to chat. And then we will get started with our full panel at 12 o'clock.
Okay.
Okay. All right, again, round of applause. Well, information that I know we're only able to initially touch on. So.
Thank you.
Salamat.
I'm just curious.